Hey everyone, and welcome. So it feels like literally everyone right now is building an AI agent, right? But here's the crazy part. Most of them are going to fail the second they try to scale. And it's not actually because the technology is broken. It's because teams drastically misunderstand what really happens after you have a successful demo. So in this explainer, we're going to decode the massive, often hidden reality of what it actually takes to keep an AI agent alive in production. And we're getting these insights straight from one of the largest enterprise deployments in the world.
Just wrap your head around this number, 20,000. Look, we aren't talking about a couple of pilot programs or a weekend developer project here. We're analyzing data and hard-learned lessons from Salesforce, who right now have over 20,000 enterprise customers running Agentforce in actual production. To put that scale into perspective, their own internal support agent alone has handled over 3 million conversations. We're looking at vast, real-world data here, which makes these takeaways absolute gold.
And all that real-world data brings us to the core plot twist of this entire explainer. John Kucera, the Chief Product Officer of Agentforce, summed it up perfectly. He said in the typical software world, 90% of the work is getting to go live, whereas in the typical AI agent, 90% of the work is after you go live to manage and improve the agent. Think about that. This is exactly why teams fail. They assume the hard work is over when the demo successfully answers a few predictable questions. But with AI, that demo is literally just the starting line.
This right here is what we call the great effort inversion. It's a massive paradigm shift. In traditional software, you design it, you build it, you run your tests, and once it's live, you're mostly just maintaining it. But AI agents are completely different because large language models are probabilistic. They're not deterministic. Users are going to throw wild edge cases at you, totally ambiguous phrasing, questions you never even dreamed of. If you don't budget 90% of your effort for what happens after launch, your project is going to hit a wall.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, the great effort inversion. Second, pre-launch foundation. Third, building the trust layer. Fourth, post-launch triage. Fifth, the deadly anti-patterns. And lastly, the future of agents.
All right, starting off with Section 1, the great effort inversion, and why a killer demo absolutely does not equal production success.
Moving to Section 2, pre-launch foundation. This is the stuff you absolutely have to get right before you ship.
Okay, so even though 90% of the work happens post-launch, there's a critical 10% you just can't skip. First rule of thumb, start small. Don't try to boil the ocean right out of the gate. As you build out a really focused use case, you need a rock-solid structure. Look at these 4 layers of the agentic enterprise architecture that Salesforce uses. Up top, you've got the engagement layer. That's where users actually talk to the agent, like in Slack. Underneath that is the agent layer, doing all the AI reasoning. Then comes the system of work, meaning the actual business apps getting things done. And at the bottom, the context layer, feeding the AI the critical grounding data it needs. It's clean, it's logical, and it keeps things separated.
Now, you might be wondering, how do you even measure success across all those layers? Well, you absolutely cannot launch without a clear KPI. Salesforce uses something called Agentic Work Units, or AWUs. These are discrete units of meaningful work completed by the agent. So instead of just counting how many random chats the AI had, which doesn't really tell you much, AWUs give you a standardized way to prove the AI is actually doing work and solving problems. To put a really tangible metric on that, let's talk about the containment rate. This is basically the percentage of cases the agent resolves entirely on its own with zero human help. If a user asks how to reset their password, gets the answer, and goes away happy, that's a win. That case is contained. But if they come back the very next day asking the exact same question, the agent failed. Tracking this metric is exactly what drives your post-launch iteration, because it tells you exactly where the agent is dropping the ball.
Section 3, building the trust layer. Let's talk about enterprise guardrails. So your agent is sitting right between your users and your highly sensitive enterprise data. That is a massive, dual-sided vulnerability. On the input side, you need guardrails to protect your data as it goes into the LLM. We're talking secure retrieval and strict zero retention agreements, so your data isn't secretly training public models. But be careful here. Masking data is important, like hiding a social security number, but if you mask too much, you strip away the context the LLM actually needs to reason. Then on the flip side, you have output guardrails protecting the user from the LLM. You need tool validation to stop it from spinning up rogue subagents and grounding checks so it doesn't just confidently hallucinate facts.
On to Section 4, the post-launch triage. Welcome to the real 90%.
Okay, the agent is live, your guardrails are set. Now the real work begins.
AI failure modes are super fuzzy compared to old-school software testing, so you have to actively monitor 4 distinct triage buckets. First, tone and brand alignment. For example, Aggie Bank had to constantly tweak their instructions just to get their FAQ agent sounding warm and human instead of like a robot. Second, logic errors, like when the AI takes way too many steps to solve something simple. Third is data quality. This is crazy, but Salesforce found out that when their support agent gave bad answers, it was actually because the AI was referencing outdated documents buried inside their 135,000 help articles. And fourth, coverage gaps, when users just ask things you never designed the bot to do. Moving fast on these 4 buckets is how you survive.
Section 5. The 3 deadly anti-patterns. These are essentially the villains of agent deployment.
Triage is great, but it only fixes things after they break. What you really want is to avoid these 3 deadly anti-patterns that just absolutely destroy performance. Anti-pattern number 1, leaning way too hard on LLM reasoning for stuff that's totally predictable. If a customer says, "Where's my order?" the steps to find that are set in stone. Look up the ID, check the status, pull shipping. If you route all of that through an LLM to think about it, you're adding huge latency and risking errors. Rule of thumb, if you can draw a flowchart for it, just write the code. Salesforce literally built AgentScript for this exact reason, saving the heavy AI reasoning only for when you actually need it.
Oh man, look at this quote. I love this because it's hilarious, but we see it all the time. Never do this, always do that. This is anti-pattern 2. A developer sees the agent doing something wrong, and their instinct is to just start yelling at the AI in the prompt. They use all caps, extra exclamation points, just praying the math model gets the hint and behaves.
Let me be clear, you have to stop prompting harder and start encoding policies. LLMs do not care about your exclamation points. If you're a financial firm and you absolutely do not do business in Hawaii, you cannot just cross your fingers and hope the AI remembers a natural language prompt about Hawaii. You encode a strict deterministic rule in the code. If state equals Hawaii, trigger this exact response. Boom. Zero AI judgment needed, 100% reliable.
And here is anti-pattern 3, context bloat. Picture an e-commerce company that was just dumping their entire get_orders API response right into the agent's brain. We're talking 100,000 tokens of pure, irrelevant noise. It completely tanked their accuracy. Do you know how they fixed it? They just trimmed the payload down to 2,000 tokens. They only fed the agent the essential stuff: order ID, status, tracking number. Instantly, the agent got faster and way more accurate. Keep that context lean.
Finally, Section 6. The future of agents, and where all this enterprise architecture is heading next.
So now that we know how to survive the launch, where is this all going? It is the fastest moving space in tech. Usually, month 1 is just a single, isolated agent trying to do everything at once. But by month 12, we're seeing full multi-agent orchestration. Salesforce is already building out these deep 3-level parent-child hierarchies. So instead of one massive overwhelmed agent, you break the problem down. A parent agent delegates tasks to highly specialized sub-agents. It keeps the instructions incredibly simple and shrinks those context windows we just talked about.
And honestly, the real value of all this is moving way beyond the little chat window on a website. You have to decouple your thinking from the widget. The future is multi-session workflows that span over several days, or invisible background agents doing boring admin work. Look at telepaths. Their agents can escalate a complex issue to a live human rep with full context. The customer doesn't have to repeat themselves at all, whether they started on the web, an email, or the phone. That is cross-channel consistency. I want to bring this all home with this incredible quote from Zia, an AI career strategist from our source material. Agents commoditize the glue and price the judgment. Just let that sink in for a second. If an AI can perfectly handle the deterministic glue, looking up orders, basic routing, sending emails, the true, scarce value in your company shifts dramatically. It shifts to the humans who govern the fleet and exercise real judgment. In fact, we are already seeing compensation shift 30 to 40% toward roles that require that high-level AI judgment.
Which leads me to this final question for you. Are you building your AI strategy just to commoditize the glue? Or are you actively structuring your architecture and your team to price the judgment? Because surviving this great effort inversion isn't just about writing better code. It's about fundamentally rethinking where human value and AI value actually intersect once you go live. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you all next time.